All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Deep End, big number 35. And Ari and I are recording this episode actually on Monday, September 1st. It is Labor Day, and it is I don't know, it just doesn't seem as colorful today. There's just something about it. Maybe it's the fact that the market is closed today. You know what I mean? You feel that too?
Man, I was a little bummed out. The market was closed. I did wake up this morning, and you know what? Blossom, which, by the way, everybody, of course, our podcast here, The Deep End, is totally powered up by Blossom. But Blossom sent me a message when the market was supposed to open, and I was like, oh, and it said like the market is now open, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, wait, but it's Labor Day, and I was like, it's closed. But my heart did spike a little bit, just a little bit, man. It was all the juices got going, and I love when the markets are open, man. Even if I'm not buying on that particular day, at least there's opportunity to take a peek at what's going on, how the market's reacting, and then I will either buy or do nothing really. But either way, exciting day because here we are in the deep end having a chat on Labor Day, rain or shine, Labor Day or not, here we are.
Ari's definitely not laboring today. Ari's on vacation. Where are you coming? Where are you coming from today, man?
I'm coming in live from Greece, from Mykonos, Greece. Mykonos, Greece. I'm so tired, man. I've been flying around. I was in the States, doing a little tour in the States, and now I'm in Mykonos, Greece. I'll be in Lisbon by in 48 hours. So, that will be fun. And then I'll be back in the States by Sunday. And I'll be heading to California, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach area, and then Portland, Oregon. So if you're in those areas, let me know. But I will be, Lisbon and then California and Portland.
You know what's crazy? I'm just now kind of thinking about this. You're hitting pretty different climates in each place. Mykonos is, well, yeah, I guess probably different than California. Mykonos different than California, even though there are beaches, I'm sure it's different. Going from Greece to California, then up to the Pacific Northwest, which is totally different than either of those two. So you're in for some mood swings as far as the weather and climate goes.
Yeah, my bag's got all sorts of weird, shirts and clothing mixed together in there. But I had a feeling. I initially left for my business trip, and it was really, it was upstate New York, it was Boston, and then New York City, and then Philadelphia, and then I knew I was ultimately coming to Greece. So my bag already had some funky clothing in there, anyways. But now we're tacking in Lisbon and then California and Portland, so it'll be interesting. But I'm nonetheless I'm excited. I'm a big travel guy, as everybody knows, so I enjoy being on
Yeah.
the road. And I was just talking to Ryan just before we jumped on, classic, and I
Mm.
was sharing with him that there's actually a hot tub behind me, and my bathing suit is out there, my towel's out there, and so after this session, I'm jumping in for a little more R&R before I hit the hay, man. I'm overlooking, really all of Greece behind me, so it's really nice to be here and get some of that R&R in.
Yeah, man. I bet. So let's get down to brass tacks, man. It is the start of a new month. It's the first of the month today. Let's go over some dividend stuff for this past month. First and foremost, overall, how was August in your portfolio? Would you say it was a an up month, a down month, good month, bad? Let's hear all
Well,
about it.
yeah, let me start, I guess, top down, and I'll just share
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now. My portfolio is currently valued at 319,000 and something change. So I'm just
Okay.
right below 320,000. The market, as of the last few trading days, last week or so, has been really ebbing and flowing. There's been some volatile days. There's been some bounce backs, and so I'm right now around 320,000, a little below. I'm excited about that. I think we're going to continue to see momentum to finish out the year. I think I'm in a really good spot, Ryan. If I stop going on all these vacations to hit 350,000 by the end of the year, that would be amazing. And now in terms of dividend income, I gotta say, based on how I'm currently investing and how little, so few positions I have in my portfolio, when again before we jumped on, you were like, "Man, do you have any dividends that came in?" And I was like, "Did I have dividends come in?" But I'm looking at the paper and I'm like, "Well, I had two. I had two dividends come in, but I'll take what I can get." Everybody knows that I've changed my strategy and I'm very focused on really building up high quality positions in more growth oriented stocks. And that's for a very specific reason. But I had two come in. One came in from Apple, and that totaled me out to $37.95. And then I
Dang.
just had some money come in from my settlement fund, which is considered a dividend, and that came out to $14.32 for a whopping total on the month of $52.27. Enough for a nice
There
little
you go, man.
dinner over here in Mykonos.
So that settlement fund, is that just cash that goes into like a money market fund or something like that? How does it generate interest, do you know?
Yeah, it goes right into a money market fund, and this is actually
Okay.
something that I recommend for everybody just to make sure that their settlement fund has actual, opportunity for you to make money while it's just sitting there. Because if you're anything like me, I have different pools, but predominantly I put a lot of money into the settlement fund for, my dry powder. And if my dry powder is just sitting there and not collecting anything, well, what a waste, for money to be hitting my account. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're at a brokerage, I don't know if all of them do it. I don't think they do. But if you're at a brokerage that doesn't put your money into the money market when it's in that settlement fund, I personally would do some research and jump into a Vanguard or the alike that does do exactly that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I need to go back and look at this in Charles Schwab, but I think how Schwab does it, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, guys, but I think how Schwab does it is you can pretty much choose where you want your cash to go, whether it's just held there in cash or it gets automatically put into a certain money market fund. I think you have some choice there as to where it goes. And I actually need to go in and revisit that and look to see if that's the case because I think right now my cash is just sitting there in cash. I think like I've got about
Seriously?
1,700 bucks. Yeah, I think I've got about 1,700 bucks in cash right now because I don't usually keep a lot of cash at all on my brokerage. Usually gets put to work right away. But I do have more than usual, and I think just this last month I got like 5 cents, and so I think we can definitely do better than that. So I need to probably tomorrow or sometime this week I need to go and look and see if I can change that and automatically set it up to go somewhere else. Because there's going to be so many better places to generate interest, and they have a lot of money market funds to choose from too. So it should be pretty easy to do. So
So really, I was talking to you.
yeah, pretty much.
Get in there and make sure that you're making money. For anybody who doesn't know, a money market fund is like an ultra safe, route to go, and you really don't need to worry much at all for in terms of volatility or your money disappearing on you when it's invested in a money market. So that is why settlement funds typically will invest your money into the money market. But yeah, Ron, you got to get on that, man. Aside from
I
from
will.
not being on that, just getting the 5 cents, I know you probably had a crazy month, at least in comparison to mine. So what did you bring in terms of dividend income? And I will preface, last month I did bring in like $450, as we all saw there last episode. We did this breaking down the dividend income. So it's not like every month I'm not bringing in anything, but that's what you
Right.
get when you get a portfolio like mine. Anyways, Ryan, to you.
Yeah, man. So August, real quick, just as a sidebar, just so everyone knows, I'm holding myself accountable. I made a note about the settlement fund, so I'm going to take care of that tomorrow. We'll get it done. No more of this 5 cent nonsense.
It's not
But anyway,
messing
as far
around
as
anymore.
yeah, exactly, man. As far as August went, it was actually a lighter month of dividends for me as well, and I don't think that you're alone in that. I don't think I'm alone in that. From what I've gathered in the comments in my most recent video, for a lot of people, August is typically a lighter month. There's just not as many companies that pay in that month, it seems like. So in total, I received one, two, three, looks like 7 different payments. Two of those were the monthly payers, Realty Income, Main Street Capital Corporation. And then we had some others like Lowe's paid me about $20. Enterprise Products Partners paid me the biggest payment for the month, about $76. Procter and Gamble came in at about $31. Williams Sonoma almost 24. AbbVie 16 and a half. So with those plus the Realty Income and Main Street, which with those two we're looking at about $44. Adding all that together, I totaled $210.19 for the month of
Wow.
August, which on one hand, $210 without having to lift a finger. I mean, that's why I love this style of investing so much. It's just seeing that coming in on autopilot. And it's crazy to know that even just a couple years ago, this was an above average month by a long shot for me, $210. But with that said, it's crazy to say that, yeah, that's kind of a low month at this point. I think at this point, my portfolio is averaging about 290 per month. And so it's quite a bit below that average, but still, I'm very happy with it. And it all evens out in the end. September, man, is actually going to be my best month of dividend income ever. And it's starting to get pretty crazy. So I'm kind of at a point with the dividends where I'm starting to get up into the 300s. It's like every other month maybe I'll have a $300 month, or at least 1 month out of every quarter I'm getting $300. September, I won't go through all of the payments, but in September I should be receiving about $355, which is just
Yo.
crazy to me. Yeah, I'm looking at this number and I'm like, that's more than I spend in groceries every month. That's like 3 times our car insurance. That's like 3.5 times probably what we spend on gas every month. So it's the number's starting to get up there, and it's cool to see that happen. The biggest payment that I will share, at least at this point in time, I don't know when the X dividend is for SCHD, but based on the shares I have right now, that payment alone should be about $115. So that's going to be really nice coming in.
Hey, Ryan, just a moment ago, you were kind of breaking down, or at least comparing, the dividend income to how much you would be spending on groceries, on a car payment. And I wanted to just ask you, because I also, kind of look at different values like that as well, right? I'll look at how much money is coming in and then say, well, a shirt costs X amount. Is it really worth it? Or what can if I don't buy the shirt, or, if I don't buy the X thing, then what would that do for me in the market? What kind of prompted you to get into that thinking?
You mean like comparing the payments to things that I could spend in real life?
Yeah, I want to say like the value.
I don't know. It just kind of started out, I think, as a fun little thing that I did in videos. And I'll still do it from time to time. But yeah, I think it started a while back. I, would share how much I would bring in dividend income. And then I'd just for fun, just for kicks, compare that to how many times I could go to In-N-Out Burger that month, or Chipotle, or Juan's Flamin' Fajitas. And so I think that's kind of where it kicked off. But, after thinking about it, it's like, I don't know. I think it makes sense to think about it this way too, because for a couple reasons. Because number one, at the end of the day, that's what this really is about, is generating this money to pay for your real life expenses. And so it's kind of cool to almost have like a checklist of the things that this money could pay for. Okay, $350, if I can average that every month, car insurance is paid for, gas for the month is paid for, so the car expenses could all be paid for. That's a huge start. And then maybe as you move up in this income, maybe once you start getting to $1,000 or $1,200, it's like, okay, there's the car payment, there's the insurance, there's our groceries for the month, there's, you name it. You can just keep adding things to that. And I think it's really cool to make that comparison. And I think it just speaks to, number one, I think it speaks to the progress that you're making in all of this. But number two, I think you need to do that. I think it's part of celebrating those small victories for something like this that takes so long to build, and requires a lot of patience. I think that it can kind of help motivate you to compare it to the real life expenses that you have, and to know that, if push came to shove, at least those things are taken care of. And like I said, you're kind of checking things off along the way. This is paid for from dividends. That's paid for from dividends. And it kind of makes it fun too. Like I said, it can help motivate you and keep you on the path to know that you're making that progress. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I do it all the time. I typically will do it when I'm about to make a purchase, though, like on the other end.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
interesting that you do it kind of, when you receive the dividends and you're like, oh, well, this can cover that. I actually, on the other end, I'll go out and, like, when I'm looking at a menu, or like I said, a new shirt, or, new shoes, a vacation, and I'm like, I could put, this $850 into, this hotel for a few days. Or if I take that 850 and I put it into the market, and then I run all my numbers, and then that helps me kind of regulate my spending and really think about if what I'm buying is really what I want to be buying. And that actually goes back to my childhood. And my dad always used to ask me, do you want that toy, or do you need that toy? And it was just always a question would have, at the cashier to pay for something. And it always turned out that, I wanted it as a kid, right? The toys. And it's okay to want things, but yeah, it's funny how it shaped me today. And it's funny to hear that you're doing that, but on the other end, I almost feel like your side is more positive. It's like a positive.
Yeah, well, no, I have those same thoughts as you do as well, and we've talked about this before, but I think all of us investors make that comparison, compare the opportunity cost of what we could physically buy, the material things that we could buy today, versus what that could turn into down the road if it was just invested. And I think for a lot of us, like most of the time, in making that comparison, you conclude that the thing that you want is really just a want and you don't need it. And in reality, you're probably better off without it. So you're probably just better saving your money. And so yeah, I think we all make those comparisons, and it's funny, dude, because when talking about this income number, sometimes the monthly income, I'll have people in the comments say, from time to time, will say things like, "Oh, you should take that and go down to the strip and gamble with it one time," or you should go, it'd be fun if you used that and went to a nice dinner and like filmed it or something like that. And I think, yeah, that could be fun. That could be a fun video to make or a fun experience, but I don't know. It doesn't. It almost doesn't feel right taking the dividends and removing them from my portfolio at this point. It almost feels like sacrilegious to do so. It's in my mind, this money that I have invested in, the income that it's throwing off, this is untouchable. This is not play money. This is not money to live off of yet. Down the road, yes, but like Charlie Munger said, never interrupt the compounding process. That's Warren Buffett has his rule number one, but I think if Charlie had a rule number one, it would be never interrupt the compounding process. And so that is something that I try to take pretty seriously. But then spending money outside of your portfolio that hasn't already been contributed, that's a different story. And we've talked about that before and have been talking about it more lately, especially, as you've been going on these trips, trying to find the balance between being okay spending that money, but not going too overboard to the point where it gets in the way of your long-term financial goals. And still, it's like, it is something that you need to have a balance with. And it all just comes back to budgeting.
Well, you know what? As I've been on these trips now, and it's thinking in my head, it's been like 2.5 weeks of travel so far. Two
That's
more to
crazy.
go. But I have been thinking a lot about the spending, and even while I'm on a trip, like I am super frugal. I breakfast was included in the hotel, and then I actually pack some of the breakfast with me for lunch, and so
You
I
catch your own
always
fish for dinner.
Yeah, man. Bring a fishing rod. um, but I really do. I try to be as frugal as possible, even while on the road, to
Hmm.
enjoy. And my excursions are even just like sit on the beach. I'm not like going crazy. Go catch sunset, and sunrise, and those. That's actually my favorite thing to do. Just go for a run at sunrise and then catch sunset. And it's like for me, that's God's artwork, and you can't get better than that. So, but what I have been thinking about is over the few weeks now, okay, how much money is going out? How much money is coming in? And I've had a really great couple of months, and but even more than that, I've had a really great few years, and I just for the life of me, as it all started the moment I saw that $11 million around that retirement, when I ran those numbers, and I was like, wow, like I could just afford to have a little bit more fun. And there are a few people out there, some fellow creators and others who are out there that I know would be gunning no matter what to just like tuck and save, tuck and save, tuck and save until you hit the seven-figure club. But for the life of me, I just can't get it out of my head that it's like nothing in life is guaranteed, and 5 years and 10 years, who's to say something, would or wouldn't happen to me in that time. And it's like if I already know now that I could ease up on the gas pedal, then do it, and just enjoy. And I'm like, man, I feel filthy rich in experiences, that's for sure. And yeah, I know I have in my calendar a day to actually sit down and like revisit my finances over the past few weeks. And but I think it was all worth it. Everything I did so far.
Yeah. And so is that how you typically do it? Do you sit down once a month, or yeah, do you sit down once a month and go over like your expenses for the prior month, where all your money went and stuff like that, or how do you handle your budgeting?
So I do it predominantly when I am on business trips or, vacations. I'll go back and look at where I spent money because now I gotta go through, okay, what's gonna get, written off and taxes and,
Hmm.
everything there, and what doesn't, and then what was business expenses, what was personal expenses. So again, I do that for, vacation, and I do that for work purposes. But really, I don't, and I used to really sit down and budget monthly,
Hmm.
but then I know all my numbers, very well. And so I actually don't do it as much. And even that was liberating, because
Yeah.
I've just become very robotic with my finances, and I don't
Hmm.
spend on top of that. So sometimes I'm like, robotically surprised that I actually saved even more, than I typically do. Does that ever happen to you?
Hmm. Dude, yeah, 100%. I get it both ways, to be honest with you. Some months I'll be surprised at how much I didn't spend, and then other months I will notice myself going over. But the months that I go over, it's typically just because of some one-off event. And, part of being an adult that I've found is that every month there's usually some sort of one-off event. There's always something that happens. Like in August, we had to get new tires for the car. In July, we had to like paint our nursery room. That was a couple $100 for all the supplies. We did it ourselves, so save money there. But it's just always something. Um, except for those rare months where there's just nothing. Everything goes exactly as you expected. You can keep it tight, and there's no surprises. They don't happen that often. But yeah, I definitely get it both ways. I would say I'm pretty in tune with my budget. I track everything with an app called Copilot, which I would highly recommend to everyone who wants a good budgeting tool. It's an app you can just get on your phone. I think it used to be called something else, like maybe it was Mint or something like that. And I wish they had an affiliate program because I would love to like I'm a big advocate for them, and I would love to be able to promote them and get something out of it because it's such a great platform. But I check that multiple times a week. I'm pretty hooked on looking at it because I can see where money's coming in, how much is coming in throughout the month, where it's going. It'll track my budget in real time. I have everything set up so I know how much should go to the house expenses, to insurance, to gas, to groceries, to discretionary, and so on and so forth. And so I can kind of gauge where I'm at as the month goes on. And it also tracks your investments as well. So I've got my brokerage account hooked up there. I've got my high yield savings account hooked up there. I've got my Roth IRA, so you can track your net worth as well. And so with all of that said, I feel pretty in tune with things they're at any given time. But to your point, you kind of get to a point with it where you it almost does become second nature. You kind of get a sixth sense for how much you've spent or how much you're bringing in, and you maybe don't have to track it as closely. And so I do think you can get to that stage as well. And I if I didn't, if I deleted Copilot from my phone, I'd be fine, and I can more or less gauge it. But it's fun. I have fun looking at it because yeah, I have fun looking at it because it feels rewarding. Actually, it's not something that stresses me out to look at my budget and my expenses. It actually feels good because typically my wife and I we're with the exception of the one-off things that you can't control. Otherwise, we're pretty dang dialed in. And most of the things that I have budgeted for, whether it's spending on restaurants or spending on groceries, we're typically coming in under that. So it's a lot of fun to be able to look and see we're doing a good job. Let's keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot changed for me when I started to pay myself first. I was
Mm.
always an advocate for it. I can't necessarily say I always did it, but I did start doing that because, I just have, first of all, multiple streams of income is incredibly important. But what I, decided to do was take certain streams of income and just say, this is solely dedicated towards investing. This is the future Ari's account. And so everything that actually comes in from two streams goes into one account, and then that's all into my investments. And so that makes me feel very comfortable to back away from tracking as much because I used to track it like pretty avidly, man. I used to be all over it. Even when I was in Manhattan and my ex and I would sit down together and we would go through our finances, and that was always nice. And I also enjoyed it. It was like a game, and I even had, at the end of the month, depending on where I was, the cell of the Excel sheet would either show up green, yellow, or red. Green was you crushed it, you came in way below. Yellow was you were teetering on that line, and red was you blew right past it. So it was always fun. And then I would alert my, at that time, my girlfriend, I'd be like, babe, we're on yellow. Just let you know, we're coming up to red, and that was fun. It was gamification. Now, though, like I said, I have multiple streams of income, and I just you feed my funds with two streams, and whatever's left over is what I can spend, or what I don't have to spend it. So usually it rolls over. Hence why the vacation turns into a really fun vacation because it's almost like my own personal point system. I'm like
Yeah.
using points to cover my vacations from never spending.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's your free cash flow. If you think about it, if you have your personal financial statements, that's the free cash flow that you can use for whatever. You can use it to
Yeah.
make more investments. You can use it to pay down debt if you have any credit card, debt outstanding or anything else. You can do all the same things that a business can do, and even more. You can have fun money, and that's something that we do too. We actually will set aside money for vacations. We have an actual dedicated vacation fund that gets at least a couple hundred or a few $100 every single month. Sometimes more. Not right now because we're saving for the car, but once that's behind us, we'll stack some up for the travel fund. But dude, yeah, it makes it so much less stressful to go doing fun things when you've already accounted for it financially.
I'm going to hold myself, to a standard here of being really just brutally honest. I still have, even though I'm bringing in the money and even though I have everything set up as I just shared, I still get, Ryan, like these little like nations. Wait, like maybe just invest this. Yeah, it's hard to
Hmm.
break. It's really hard to break that. It took a long time for me to get to where I am today to really be able to enjoy as much money as I'm enjoying lately. But I still get it, where I'll go to book something and it's like, well, you could just invest everything, and it's interesting to kind of zoom out and hear myself think sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and I would be surprised if that ever completely goes away. Um, I think that's just part of who you are. I think that a lot of us have that same have that same chromosome or whatever you want to call it, that same aspect to our DNA that it's just something you can't avoid, um, or can't completely get rid of. And you mentioned someone earlier. You mentioned a type of person earlier who instead of maybe having more of a balance, they will be so gung ho. They are sprinting to $1 million in their portfolio or whatever that is, whatever that number is. And we all have that number, right? That number that we consider to be our I don't want to call it a finish line, but kind of that enough number, where we feel like we've made it. We can kind of ease off the gas a little bit. But and I don't know. I guess I'll see when I actually hit this number for myself. I would imagine that once you do, you just move the goalposts and you keep going at it with the same tenacity. I don't think you ever really feel like you're satisfied with the amount that you have. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly like to a T, like how
Yeah.
I feel,
Okay.
because I'm like, all right, just play the tape forward. I love doing that, right? When you have fear, play the tape forward. When you have anxiety, play the tape forward. When you're about to make a move or not make a move, play that tape forward. So when I play this tape forward, the day that I wake up with $1 million in my portfolio, what happens next? Well, I know the way
Hmm.
Ari's brain works, and it's going to go 2 million, you know? So,
Well, if I can
like,
compound it at 7% per
yeah,
10% per year, the next 7 years I'll have 2 million.
yeah.
Let's keep it tight.
So exactly like you shared, just move that goalpost, It's like,
Yeah.
and I saw a yacht out in the water earlier today at the beach, and I was like, well, I want a yacht one day, So it's like I really love boats. Like I love boats, man. And I would love to have a boat one day, like a yacht,
But
And that
Ari, do you need a yacht? You might want a yacht, but do you need a yacht?
I don't need it. I don't need it to be happy. It would just I'll tell you what, I don't want to die the richest man in the cemetery. So by that point, like I'm gonna buy a yacht if I have the money to do so and keep everything afloat. Um,
Yeah.
but really, I just it's fun, like that's how I operate, and it wasn't like my brain. I love to kind of zoom out and like hear myself think objectively and like just really analyze myself. And it's just funny because I'm like, yeah, I would love a yacht, one day. That'd be amazing. I'm happy now. I'd love the yacht. Um, and then I said to myself, but so what I'll do is I'm just gonna work harder, right? Like I'll just be able to get the yacht, and I'll also be able to keep everything going the way that I have it. Like I fundamentally believe somebody can. What is it saying? Pick your cake and eat it too. Like I think there's a way to just do it all.
I hope so. I mean, typically it's hard, right? In most things, it's hard to have your cake and eat it too. I think, who was it? Well, I don't know who said this, but there's this quote that says something like, "You can't do or have whichever, either or. It works both ways. You can't have anything, or no, you can't have everything, but you can have any. Wait, I'm
I was
getting
like, that
mixed
sounds
up.
great,
It's
man.
yeah. No, it's sorry guys. You can't do everything, but you can do anything. There's a difference between the two. Like you can't do
Wait, say that again.
all
You
these
can do
different
it.
things that you want to do, but if you focus in on a select few things, that's doable.
Say the quote one more time.
I'm gonna butcher it. I already have. Let's just start the whole
You're like,
episode
you
over.
can do everything and do anything.
It's
That
something to the
sounds
extent
about
of
right.
you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Right, right. I do agree with that. But here's what I mean when I say like pick your cake and eat it too. You're not it that I'm not saying like you could pick every cake. I'm saying pick the cake
Yeah.
that you want, and then like you can also eat that cake. And I don't like I just man, I've worked really hard, man. And I've done the thing where like, I feel like I'm thinned out because I've done like I was trying to do everything, and that doesn't work. But I do realize that when I focus on like certain things and just keep at that and work harder at those things, then it gets much bigger, right? Like life gets bigger, and that's where I'm at now. Like I'm not looking to do anything crazy, man. I'm not looking to become like the next, you know, John Mayer or Elton John. I don't know why those guys came to mind right now, but I'm just looking to like double down on what I'm doing and make more, because that's what's in front of us, me and you, man, and everybody out there. And if you feel stuck, well, you can just climb out of the hole that you're in because you're the only one that's digging it for yourself. And that's how I think about life. And so when I looked at that yacht earlier today, and I was like, man, it'd be nice to have a yacht. Some people have the mindset that goes, yeah, but that will never be me. I just have the mindset that goes, how do I make that happen? And whether or not I get it, like I don't, like I said, I am a happy-go-lucky guy just sitting on that beach, enjoying I had a nice iced tea, and I couldn't have been happier, man. I didn't feel any like loss. I don't have the yacht, and poor me. This sucks, right? I was like, it would be awesome to be able to work harder, get the yacht, and enjoy the yacht. And if I never get the yacht, also okay. But it's like it's that attitude around life. It's not like the poor me, the victim. It's the like, well, how can I do it if I were able to do it?
There's this fitness guy that I followed for years. His name's Christian Guzman, and his tagline is proud but never satisfied. Like I'm happy with the things that I have and I'm happy with what I'm doing, but at the same time I don't want to be complacent and I don't want to slow down and I don't want to stop making progress. So yeah, it's a tough balance to strike, but it is a necessary one. And I think excuse me, I think if you want to try and have your cake and eat it too, that's kind of the mindset that you need to have. I'm happy with the things I have. I have my cake, but I also might like a little bit more cake than I have. So I don't know. I think finding a healthy balance between those two things is the way to go. I was kind of talking about this, I guess kind of this with one of my buddies yesterday. Actually, this guy that I do a weekly run club with. He's a fitness influencer too, actually, and he's been doing it for years. And actually, when I was first getting into all this stuff, I would watch him on YouTube, and then I find out here in Vegas he's my neighbor, and then we connected. It was really cool, full circle thing. But it's fun now because when we meet up to do the run club, we get to talking about social media and we get to talking about, we have that in common, and so we talk a lot about that and our goals with it and where we want to take it, and just kind of the same thing, like trying to be happy with what we've built so far, but trying to figure out how to keep that going, how to keep making progress, especially because it's this thing just like investing too. It's got its ups and downs, it's got its ebbs and flows. And so we're talking yesterday, and he's saying like, man, I just want to get to like, I think he's talking specifically on TikTok. He's like, man, I just want to get to like 100,000 followers on Instagram. I just want to get to like 200,000 followers. And I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool goal. That's kind of his yacht version. But then I asked kind of the next question that you asked yourself. It's like, okay, let's reverse that. How do I get there? How do I get to that goal? Because it's good to have these goals based on a certain outcome, but truth be told, I really don't think about things that way. Like, okay, I would love to someday have, yeah, $1 million portfolio. I would love to have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I can't just will it into existence. And so I just don't think it's very helpful for me to set goals based on that particular outcome. It's possible that it could create bad incentives and make me do the wrong things to try and get there. It's possible, hopefully not, but it's more possible if you have those outcome based goals. And when him and I were talking, I said, instead of that, I try and think about things like I try to set process based goals. Every single week, I know that I'm going to post, like my goal is to post 2 videos per week. My goal is to do 1 live stream. I'm doing 1 deep end conversation. I'm doing X number of TikToks or X number of reels or shorts or whatever. And so I have this process every single week of these things that are within my control, these things that I are based on my own input. And the growth and the outcome based goals will come as a byproduct of these process based goals. And so it's really all about what can I do, what is within my control to get to that point that I'm trying to get to. And personally speaking, I find it much more helpful and much more fun too to set goals based on a process, on a to-do list. And it keeps it fun for me, and it keeps the focus on the journey itself and not so much on the outcome. I think if you focus too much on the outcome of whatever it is, especially with this investing stuff, it's so easy to get overwhelmed by it or get discouraged or start to feel impatient about it because you're trying to reach this finish line, which when you get there, you realize there is no finish line. I'm just going to keep moving the goalposts like we talked about. And so when you have your eyes constantly set on that thing that's way out there, it's like, of course it's going to take way longer to get there. But bring your focus back here to the here and now, to the things you can control. And I think it just makes the journey much more bearable, and I think it makes it much more fun. Sorry for the tangent. Hopefully all of that makes sense.
I agree with everything you shared. I also think, it's just bringing a memory back to mind for me. My ex, when I first got her started with like kind of understanding how to look at everything, and both financially, but also even like a career trajectory for herself, I literally drew a ladder on a piece of paper. And I said to her, I was like, humor me for a second. I was like, you're at the bottom of the ladder and you want to climb to the top of the ladder for this position. And I was like, what rungs are in between? Like, what are those rungs? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, what are the little steps that you have to take to climb the ladder? Because you can't just show up at the top of the ladder, and it is equally, I think it's more fun. It's more fun for me climbing the ladder than getting to the top of the ladder and just standing at the top of the ladder. And also,
Yeah.
there's a quote that threw it onto Blossom a couple weeks back. I loved it so much, but basically it was saying, it's not necessarily about reaching your destination. It's about who you become on the journey. And I really love that because, even now, man, on whether it's this little trip or the one I took, a couple months back, we are always becoming a new version of ourselves. Even when we're just doing, the monotonous tasks day in and day out, we are still becoming new individuals every single day, every single experience. Not literally, nothing happens in life twice, right? Like, even as much as we want to think so, you probably had a cup of coffee this morning, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you made that cup of coffee, you were probably wearing a different shirt than you were wearing yesterday when you made that coffee, right?
I wish I could say I was, but I've been wearing the same shirt to bed for the last week or so, if I'm being completely honest. Different
Maybe
underwear, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say different underwear. I hope so. Different socks,
Yeah.
or even just this, like a hair follicle this way instead of that way,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
there is always going to be something that will make that experience brand spanking new. And if you can live like that, that's why I often say I'm a billionaire, because everything I'm doing is for the first time. And when you do it for the first time, it's incredibly exciting, and I really try to tap into that. So, when I went, like, this is why I also love running at sunrises and then going to watch the sunset, because it's just always different. And it's like always a little bit, different shades of a color. Beautiful, man. And this is the artist at work. So what I'm getting at here is this whole journey that we're on, day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. It's really packed with brand new experiences. And we're becoming different people because you're a different person than you were yesterday. Even if you don't think so, you are. On this journey of financial wealth, I mean, just think about how, like, I think back to when I first started this journey, and I wish the Ari today could, like, really speak to the Ari who first started out on this journey. Like a one-on-one, whisper to the ear type of real heart-to-heart conversation that's like, hey man, if you're doing X and Y and you're just hitting X and Y, like, you're gonna be fine. Like, just enjoy this whole thing because it's gonna go by. And I guess that's why, like I said, it's not completely gone, that ability to just spend without even thinking. But like you said, it's like, I think it's a good thing. It's not my core. It's not my core that I think like that. And what I will say is just, I'm a totally different person than the guy who started off on this journey. The guy who needed to be a millionaire by 30. And then it was like, for what? So let's just say you're a millionaire by 30. Okay. What changes? Nothing changes. So, and I still want to accomplish, becoming the millionaire in that 7-figure club. But I'm just also deathly afraid, though, of just not living at all these days. And it's such a crazy, like, different version of Ari, Thinking out loud here.
Well, it's an interesting thought to know that you really don't know what each day is going to bring. Like, you really, I mean, life is just so crazy. You don't know what's going to happen at every at every point in time. We need to be balancing the present, living for today, and enjoying the time that we get to have now, because tomorrow's not guaranteed, but simultaneously also planning for the future, assuming that we will be around for it. In case in point, like, if for no other reason, that there in itself is a great reason to, that is the reason to try and strike balance in your portfolio. Because you just don't know how long you have here. And you want to, and we only have one go around at this thing, and so you need to make the most of it. But then with, it's so interesting too, because someone could hear that sentence right there and take it the complete opposite direction and say, well, I'm not gonna save anything. If that's true, then YOLO. Okay, I want to live for today, and I'll figure out tomorrow. But that's not the right way to go either. So it's totally about balance.
Some
100%.
people get away with that, to an extent, but I will also, like, some people literally, like, YOLO it all the way through, and they will get away with it. Here's the big problem: is you actually pass on the burdens to your family, friends, and family. Let's just say you were in debt. Like, the debt doesn't magically disappear. Like, or if you don't have any savings, it's like, what, you can't even pass money down to your children. You can't, so I feel like even if you somehow skate through life and you YOLO it all away, and, like, you end up on your death day with nada to a T, like, you just did it, like, you didn't even want to leave anything to others that you loved, or, like, what was your legacy? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, to be the person who is here on this earth enjoying working, enjoying spending, enjoying saving, like enjoying the whole process so that by the time that you pass, you're also going to leave something behind. I think that's like the ultimate win.
I feel like we're kind of teetering toward the big question, which is like, okay, well then, what is the purpose of this whole thing? I feel like that's kind of the direction this is starting to head into. What is the purpose of life? And I don't think we can tackle that in this conversation. That's a whole can of worms that I wouldn't even know where to start with that because it's different for everyone. But um,
But we do have, or at least we had a question from the other week that kind of ties into this.
oh
It's interesting timing on it. And that question, I'll paraphrase it real quick, but you read it out loud. It dealt with when should an investor actually kind of switch gears a little bit, right?
yeah, yeah. You want me to read it because I have it pulled up right
Yeah.
here.
I think it
So
actually
okay,
ties in very well.
yeah. So this question was actually asked on last week's episode. It was from Geo. Well, I'll just call him Geo. Geo says, "Hey guys, great episode. Really enjoyed this one. I have a question for you both. In your opinion, how long does your time horizon need to be in order for you to start investing in covered call ETFs or higher yielding stocks in general?"
You wanna start?
So I want to, how do I say this? I kind of feel like I need to choose my words carefully here. I have really soured on covered call ETFs. Pretty much all of them. I mean, they're not all bad, but I would say that for me personally, in almost every instance, I have nothing against covered call, or excuse me, I have nothing against high yield stocks in general. I think they are part of a well balanced portfolio where they can be, but I personally am not a fan of covered call ETFs in general. For long term income seeking investors, I think that you're better off buying companies that are actually generating profits that ideally grow those profits over a longer that can grow those profits over a long period of time. Um, and that's kind of where I want to kick it off. So I personally probably won't be touching covered call ETFs at all at any point. Um, Now, generally speaking, though, as far as when to transition from maybe like a lower yielding, more growthy type of investing strategy to more emphasis on higher yielding, more income seeking, I think the general rule of thumb is the closer you get to retirement, the more it makes sense to do that. And I definitely would agree with that. If your goal is to live off of income, which for any dividend investor it is. So I think that's the general rule of thumb. But like I said, I also am a fan of having some high yield investments as part of a well balanced all weather portfolio. And when I say high yield, like I'm not just talking about 10% yields or above, 8, 9, 10% or above. For me, like you guys probably think I'm crazy at this point. I think expectations have totally changed over these last few years. Definitely changed from when I first was getting into this stuff. But when I was first getting into this stuff, a high yield was like 4% or above. And I still maintain that. Like to me, a high yield stock is 4%, 5%, 6%. And so I think that you can have some of those as part of a well balanced investing strategy at any time, and that's something that I personally do. I definitely have some high yielders in my portfolio, but I certainly don't put all my eggs in that basket. And you know what's crazy? I've been doing these portfolio reviews. I looked at one portfolio last week that had five holdings. Okay, five different holdings, and I think this investor's on the younger end, like maybe in their 20s or 30s. Every single one of these holdings was a business development company. And I like BDCs. I've got a few in my portfolio, but he had ones like Ares Capital, and these were good ones actually. Ares Capital, Blue Owl Capital, Hercules Capital, and there were a couple other ones in there. And I looked at that and I was like, that's just not the right way to do it either. Okay, I think they're fine on their own, but that's not the right approach. I think you need to have balance. And I even think that's true when you are close to retirement. I still think you need balance. I always think you need to be balancing yield and growth. I think you always need to have your cake and eat it too in that department.
I like the answer. I will say, at least from my end, okay, so I am not invested right now in any covered call ETF. I don't have any plans to be. I don't need the income right now, and so while the individual stocks I'm invested in tend to pay dividends, um, what it always goes back to for me is like the why do I need the money, or why do I feel I need the money right now? And I think it clears up a lot of questions for a lot of investors when they ask themselves that question. Because most times when you're 20 or 19 or however old this kid was, you don't need that cash. And so I say, let that cash work for you by appreciating, you know, and you can invest into a tech ETF. You can invest into just the S&P 500 and keep it as simple as that. But when you get to covered call ETFs, I think the big question is, why are you looking for treasures there? And obviously there's money to be made. There's not, not all of these funds are great funds, the gems for moneymakers. But why? Why do you need that
Yeah.
money? And sometimes I feel like, I've even had people on Masters of the Market, and I would ask a similar question, and people are just like, I just want it now. And I'm like, okay, but like, I want the yacht now. But I'm okay with not having it now because there's a certain path forward for that. And I think that this kind of touches that. So there's a certain time and a place, I think, where covered call ETFs would be very suitable for an individual investor, for a retail investor. And for the vast majority of people out there, I don't think it's suitable. And yeah, I mean, I think once you get closer to retirement, you need capital now. Need cash now. I think that's when you can start looking into them. Other than that, like, I just don't, for the life of me. And I've had many, again, many people on Masters of the Market who are invested in them. If you're making money, you're making money, and that's great. I just like to get down to like your whys. And that's where I get concerned when I ask somebody their why. Usually the older folks who have been a master of the market who I've spoken to, they actually have a legitimate why. It's the younger folks who are just like seeing dollar signs. It's almost like when you see the distribution come in, you get like, that ching ching in your head, and it's like,
Yeah.
nice. But like, why do you
Yeah.
need that? I don't get it, Ron. I really don't get it.
I think part of it too, part of the turnoff for me is the variability as well in the payments. It's not like a normal REIT or other dividend paying stock where, if they have a dividend policy of paying 25 cents per share per quarter, they're going to adhere to that. You know what to expect with covered call ETFs. I think you've said it like this before. It's like every new day is like a fresh start basically, and it can really go up or down. It could go either way. And so I just think it's hard to it's hard to budget your income. It's hard to budget basically when you don't know what your income is going to be for the month. Um, and a lot of these do have a high amount of variability. And I think for someone who's in retirement or close to it, like that, because of that variability, it makes sense to not be in them. I think you need more certainty and you need more preservation when you are that close to using your income. And so that's another reason why I'd be careful with the covered call ETFs. But then this is where it becomes a trade-off because okay, even like a JEPI or a JEPQ which have 10, 11% yields, which is awesome. Like do not scoff at a 10 or 11% yield. If you're looking at that thinking that's too low, I think you need to check your premises, and I think you need to check your expectations because they've gotten all out of whack. But what was I saying with those? But even with those, the variability, it goes up and down, and so I would just I wouldn't feel comfortable having my money in that for that reason.
I did we answer this question? I feel like we did answer this question. And it's if what is his name? Geo. If he wants like a specific age, I can't give a specific age. I can only share with you that you know your goal best. But go to that why. Like if you don't need that
Yeah.
money, I really think there's just better opportunities out there for you as an
And
investor.
yeah, I agree. And I want to say, like, first and foremost, I think first and foremost, your goal should be to not put yourself in a position where that's something you're genuinely concerned about by the time you reach retirement. That's why it's so important to give yourself a long time horizon so you can allow maybe these lower yielding assets to grow and compound. That way you can kind of just grow into retirement. You don't have to completely switch up your routine or your program or your strategy because what you've done over the last 10 to 15, 20 years has been good enough to get you to where you need to go. But maybe with that said, maybe the person who's asking this question or the people who think about these things, maybe they're just now starting and they don't have the time to build up that dividend snowball or the snowball in general and have that compounding effect. And at that point, I don't really know the best way to go for those people because on one hand, I feel for that it's tough. You don't want to work forever. You should be retiring. You feel like you're trying to play catch up and you see these things that seem like the golden ticket to get you there. But then again, on the other hand, I'm like, but you can't take shortcuts. Still, you cannot take shortcuts to this. It might look good today, but maybe not tomorrow. And it goes back to just what we were talking about earlier. At all times, you have to balance today versus tomorrow. Assuming there's going to be a tomorrow, you have to always still put yourself in the shoes of yourself 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get excited about the here and now, like where they are today. They totally fail to see in front of them where they're going, which is more important than where we're standing this like right now at this moment. Because in an instant, life is going to keep on unfolding. And so, I just think you need to project forward and with these income products, again, just going back to that why, like there's what's also interesting though is you're now starting to see a lot of creators create content around these income ETFs. And, even I myself, I've had a lot of guests on who were invested into these ETFs. The question I always ask them is like, why that instead of, a different strategy? Most of the time it's just because I want the money now. That's, that's an acceptable answer. You can want money now, but the greater question is there something better for you, better suitable for you that actually over the course of that time period that you're just going to be sitting making income, you could be appreciating and making income, dividend income. Like you could do that together. It's hard to, I think today it's really hard for investors because we're all getting duped by these crazy high yielding ETFs.
I mean, Wall Street, man, they know people will buy it, they'll sell it.
And the trend, it's
So,
this the trend definitely at this moment in time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's interesting.
It is interesting, and there's always. I really was hoping this wasn't going to turn into like a just a bashing session on covered call ETFs because I feel like we just do that too much. And not even bashing, but we're such broken records with this conversation. Um, but it's the unfortunate thing is like it still needs to be repeated, and it just always there's always going to be something like this. The covered call ETF trend won't last forever, but when it does fade, there will be something similar or something that will come to take its place, and then we'll have to start all over again and have the same conversation about something else. And I don't know. I just it it just goes back to you just can't take shortcuts. There are no shortcuts to this. The simple tried and true strategies, the boring strategies, the boomer way to invest, as some people will call it. Man, when you get to the root of it, that's always going, in the long run, that's always going to be the thing that works. And this doesn't just apply to investing, and we're a broken record with what I'm about to say too. That's true with anything you want to do. It always comes down to patience and discipline and consistency, and there are no shortcuts. No matter what you want to build or grow or do, you cannot take shortcuts. This is no exception to that. And the unfortunate thing about this particular instance is that if you do try and take those shortcuts, man, it's going to leave you, if retirement is the ultimate goal, it can leave you so much farther from getting there than if you just did the right thing to begin with, the thing that you know you should be doing. But it's so easy to give into temptation and get into these things, especially when you see so many other people doing it.
Not only just so many other people doing it, but so many people reporting income on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, even of, 40,000, and you're like, wow, I want that,
Yeah, I want that for
it's,
sure.
it's so hard to, I feel like, even creators are the worst. We jump on a trend and then the trend rolls along and we're on that trend. But you always should be asking, like, why? Why is a creator saying that? Why am I investing in it? Why am I excited about it? Like, because there are so many things, emotional factors definitely that will go into your investment decision that shouldn't be. Investing should, in my opinion, shouldn't necessarily be fun. It shouldn't be like a trip to see Ryan in Vegas, going gambling. It should be steady. It should be systematic. It should be, well strategized because you need to ultimately get to where you got to go.
Hmm.
And these covered call ETFs, well, I think we're going to see the long-term implication on these ETFs, over the span of time because they're all still so new. I'm curious to see the kids who invest in them now. Where are they in 20 to 30 years versus the kids who kept to kind of their investor profile?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. In the meantime, I mean, first and foremost, it's going to take a big shift in the market to see any sort of change in sentiment. Um, but if and when that does happen, yeah, it will be really interesting to see how things shake out and see how investors um, feel about them, these things after the fact. Um, I wish everyone well. I really do. And this isn't to say, maybe it comes off this way. This isn't to say that our way of doing these things is necessarily better, but I don't know. It just seems like there's so many warning signs. There's so many red flags when it comes to some of this stuff that it almost seems like obvious to avoid them. But yeah, maybe we're wrong, and or maybe we're right, and it's just not as obvious. I don't know, but time will tell. And in the meantime, yeah, people will just keep doing what they're gonna do. So it is what it is.
Which begs the question for us all. What exactly are your thoughts on covered call ETFs? Are they truly the shortcut to generating a ton of wealth for yourself on a monthly basis? Or are you shying away from them? And if you are shying away from them, let us know why you're shying away from these types of ETFs. Comment down below to let us know. Ryan, it's an hour, almost 10. Any closing thoughts?
The only one is that I just want to say thank you to everyone for sticking around. If you're still here, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Um, all right, man. Enjoy the rest of your time in Greece.
For the next time we all see me, well, I'll be in what? I'll be somewhere in the States, either California or Oregon. So we'll see where I'm
Yeah,
at. But
yeah.
thank you. Thank you to everybody who's keeping up with us on the deep end. And remember, Ryan and I are sharing our portfolios transparently in the Blossom community. So if you're not already on Blossom, link down there in the description in the pinned comment with a nice link for you to click on. Then go over to Ryan's portfolio, see mine as well, engage with the community, because this is really, in my opinion, where I want to say you can really lock in with investors who are going places. We're all heading on this financial freedom journey together. So very exciting place to be, but I'll leave it at that. And until the next go round of the deep end, investors will catch you all there.